When most people think of the Justice League, they usually think of the JLA from the comics, the Justice League cartoon series, or even the Zack Snyder multi-part film. But I can guarantee next to nobody thinks about 1997's Justice League. Nor should they. Just imagine a Justice League movie so bad that it actively makes you nostalgic for Joss Whedon's terrible take on the brand. That's what we're dealing with here. Now, I haven't seen all of the Justice League movies, but I am very confident in calling this one the very worst. Because quite frankly, the brand could not sink to a lower depth than this. I want you to imagine the Justice League, just for a moment. Who do you think of? Probably Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Trinity, the founding fathers and mother of the Justice League. Their most famous figures, right? Well, all of them are missing for this made-for-TV movie/pilot. Don't expect to see Aquaman here either, though I don't know too many people are shedding too many tears over that one. While the start of this would-be series was kind enough to give us the likes of Green Lantern, The Flash, and Martian Manhunter, the rest of the team is made up of Fire, Ice, and the Atom, who, with all due respect, aren't exactly A-listers. Actually, they're not even really B or C-listers either. These are some of the most lesser-known, lesser-loved members the team has ever seen. And yes, the Atom has since regained some popularity since then, but it doesn't dismiss the fact that no one was clamoring to see the character on screen at the time. There is just so much to hate about this one. There's so very little of what potential fans of the product would like. The costumes are goofy looking, the effects were laughable even for the time, and the character depictions are way off. If you were a fan of the comic characters, you probably wouldn't be a fan of this show. And even if you knew nothing about any of these characters, after watching this, you'd probably hope to keep it that way. We're talking about a product so bad that some of the people working behind the scenes on it had asked to have their names taken off of the project. When people who are putting in work on something don't want to be credited for said work, that's probably not a great sign. At the time, critics called this pilot Friends with Superpowers. And I can see what they mean by that. A lot of effort went into trying to make these characters relatable for 90s audiences, rather than properly portraying the characters from the comics. And yes, they were definitely trying to copy what they saw on TV and what was popular at the time. But with the benefit of hindsight, I would say that this is much closer to The Office, but with cosplay. Yes, this show predates that one. I'm not saying that that's what they were intentionally trying to emulate. I'm just saying that there's probably a better comparison to be made there. The show is shot in a work setting, even if that particular job isn't your everyday office space. And we're even given talking headshots of the characters throughout, as if they were taking part in some sort of documentary. Except they aren't. The show isn't filmed as if these heroes are being recorded in their work lives, and I think it would be a mistake on their part if it was. But we're given these glimpses into their personalities and feelings about scenarios in these random throwaway shots that don't seem to have any significance to the actual plot at hand. I understand that Parks and Recreation did this as well, with the show not being filmed as a mockumentary but carrying over the aesthetic from The Office, but Parks and Rec this is not. It's a lot less forgivable, a lot more jarring, and a lot less entertaining here. These scenes somehow manage to stand out from the absurdity of everything else, and not in a good way. Because not only do they already feel out of place as is, but what they're saying feels out of place in the plot. These random interjections don't add anything to what's going on. More often than not, they're just the characters saying spontaneous. Other times they're giving anecdotes about moments that have never happened on screen. And at other times they're just overly repetitive, getting the same point across time and time again. Sometimes basically recycling the same dialogue. Sometimes basically recycling the same dialogue. Like that. I mean, I understand that anything made in the late 90s is obviously gonna feel dated in the 2020s. But if I had caught this in 97, even then I'd feel like it was incredibly off. It was made in 1997, but it feels like it could have been made in 1987. The tone is so camptastic that it would make Adam West blush. Once again, I get that this was made in 1997, the same year that Batman and Robin was released, but did we not learn our lesson from that one? It's crazy to think that the cartoons handled the material with much more dignity than this live-action iteration. You'd think that having live-action adult actors in the parts would lend to much more real adult-oriented material, or at least a little bit less childish-oriented material. But no. And the tone makes it that much more bizarre when the show uses words like which it does. It doesn't match the tone that already doesn't match the tone of what it was they were trying to interpret. This was probably the least faithful adaptation of the superpower team than I've ever seen. Not only are these not accurate portrayals, but in a lot of cases, these characters are shallow stereotypes that have no depth to them whatsoever. Case in point, the Atom. He is nerd. That is his character. Goofy hair, glasses, a sleeveless vest over a white shirt, and a bow tie. He's not even a person. He is nerd. That is all there is to him. He acts exactly the way that you think he'd act by taking one good look at him. Judge this book by its cover, because that's all there is to it. He is all brain. And the Flash in this is all no brain. Here, Barry Allen is the Flash, but he's completely unrecognizable. I'm not just talking about his appearance either. Gone is his genius intellect and knowledge of tech and science, and in its place is your average Joe on a downhill slope. He's an unemployed schlub. As a matter of fact, his alleged lack of intelligence is actually brought up in the movie.
It just doesn't come as easy for me as it does for you guys. And Ray here is oozing with brains, he could probably do whatever he wanted. But me, what are my special skills?
That is not only incorrect, that is a blatant slap in the face to the character. His intellect is integral to his identity. Here, you're just making him Joey Tribbiani. He also carelessly uses his powers outside of costume in public, and yet no one is none the wiser, even in moments where it seems obvious that somebody would be clued into something going on. The Green Lantern seems to be an amalgamation of all the mainstay lanterns that had been out at the time. He's named Guy Garner, but he resembles Hal Jordan and Kyle Renner. He has the mask and gauntlet of Kyle, the vest of Guy, and the personality of Hal. Also, through small details, we can see that he shares the backstory of Hal Jordan, what with being an Air Force pilot and all. It's really a charcuterie board of Lantern Corps. Martian Manhunter looks like pure nightmare fuel. He's kept off screen most of the time, not for a big reveal, but instead just to keep the makeup budget down. The reason is given that he has limited time in human form, but that's actually not the case. Martian Manhunter doesn't have a problem being a human. He has a problem with being set on fire, but outside of that, he's good. His voice is heard and he's shown disguised as other humans throughout. But Martian Manhunter himself doesn't reveal himself until almost an hour into this hour and 21-minute movie. Admittedly, I don't have a vast knowledge of the characters Fire and Ice. They aren't featured in a lot of the Justice League stories that I've read, and even when they weren't a giant fixture in them. They were just kind of there. In this, Ice is depicted as an overly anxious mess of a woman. She's constantly uneased and fidgety. It's almost like nervousness is her only character trait, probably because it is. She is stress personified. Fire enjoys the finer things in life, but most don't live up to her expectations. Credit to the actress who is playing the part, because this could easily make her come off as stuck up and snobby, but I think she dials it back just enough to make the character almost likable. Or as almost likable as anybody could possibly be in this. Fire and Lantern seem to have some past relationship that gets referenced every now and again, and I can only imagine that that plot point exists because of their name correlation. Somebody thought they were doing something clever. But I can assure you, after having sat through this, there is absolutely nothing clever throughout. No one cast here was going to be winning any awards for their part, though for one cast member, this wouldn't be the last time they played that part. Interestingly enough, Miguel Ferrer portrayed the part of Weather Wizard, a role he'd reprise on Superman the Animated Series. I'm going to be real with you, I'm actually glad that he got another chance at the character, because quite frankly, he was the one part of the movie that I almost liked. He has the right voice for villainy, and I also think the actor has a really menacing look to him. And you know what? It actually worked. His costume could use a little work, but hey, so could everyone else's. The Flash's ears are way off, like he's trying to look like a colorful Dark Knight. Martian Manhunter looks like a hybrid between the Mask and the main villain from the Mask. And the Green Lantern looks like baby's first Comic-Con. The movie showcases the Weather Wizard running rampant over Metro City, creating unpredicted storms and tornadoes in a moment's notice. The Justice League must band together to find out who this weatherman gone rogue is and stop him at any cost. While I will credit this TV movie as showing off the detective work the team would have to do, something that gets lost in translation every now and again, but I also have to fault it because for the most part, it seems like they're less interested in what they're adapting and more interested in turning it into something else. A lot less emphasis is put on the heroes and villains, as a spotlight is put on the characters outside of their costumes and in their day-to-day lives. It was less concerned with showing hero work, and much more concerned with showing how being a hero can affect a person. We see Barry attempting to not get too used to being a bum, and just being a happy-go-lucky unlucky goof. Fire is an aspiring actress who's having a hard time finding a part worthwhile. Guy is going through relationship issues with his girlfriend. The Atom and Ice find comfort in their shared awkwardness, leading to flirtations of a future between the two. That's really where the meat of this movie is. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with saving on budget, showing off powers on a TV budget probably isn't the easiest thing to do, especially in 1997 with limited technology. So you know what's a good alternative to that? Not making this show. Doing anything else. Make a sitcom. Make any other sitcom. There's just so many goofy moments that bear mentioning, but go by so quick in passing. So much questionable stuff going on here. We're shown Ice's origins, and I don't even know how to properly articulate how she gets her powers in this, so let me just show you. Did you get any of that? And now she can turn water into ice. Yeah, I don't know about this one, Elsa. Guy's relationship with Clueless Girl is pretty strange. I call her that both because she was in the movie Clueless, and also because her character exemplifies that movie's name. Guy is shown serenading his girlfriend by singing her favorite opera for her at dinner. As you do. That's not really important, but I couldn't let that moment go unmentioned. They have the classic hero romance problem. She wants her man to be there, but he's too busy running off and saving the world. Because he hasn't shared his secret with her just yet, she's left thinking that she's dating an uncaring jerk. Except he literally runs off and shows back up a second later to save her. And she can't figure out that these two are one and the same? Yeah, that mask isn't really doing a whole lot to conceal his identity. He's not even putting on a voice, that's just him in costume. You looked him in the eyes a millisecond ago, and you're doing it right now again, yet you can't figure out that this is a case of dual identity? I mean, there is suspension of disbelief, and then there is whatever this is. The Weatherman's identity is also hardly a mystery. Even with the red herring the pilot pushes on us, it's not fooling anybody. Having the character issue threats on the side of city buildings like he was a wrestler cutting a promo on a Titantron was certainly an interesting choice. Not a good one, but interesting. Martian Manhunter chose to take on the identity of the Weather Wizard upon greeting Ice in the Justice League headquarters, thus scaring the crap out of her. Again, it seems like a strange choice, especially when she just had an altercation with this villain who was once her boss. There's literally no reason to do this. I get that it's to show that they'd interacted before when he was already disguised as her former employer in a previous scene, but you could have just said that to her instead of scaring her half to death. There's this guy, the kid from the Addams Family sequel, and he's basically stalking Fire in her personal life. But it's okay because he's doing it in a quirky way. Anyway, he doesn't mind her constantly rejecting his advances because he knows he can win her love. So he buys her gifts to show his worth and tries to impress her with his culinary skills. But it's through these gifts that he's able to figure out her identity, as Fire just so happens to be wearing the same set of earrings that he bought her. That's really how you're gonna figure out her identity? Everything else about her appearance, that's just not a tip-off to you? She's not even wearing a mask, she just put on green eyeliner. Like, alright, okay, fine. What's really weird about their romance, though, is that while Martin is smitten with her, she obviously has an issue with his age. Which, by the way, we're never told how old he is. He claims to be 22, but that's shut down immediately and laughed off, so he's obviously younger than that. However old he is, Fire still attempts to give him a chance, until ultimately she decides that he's too young for her. Then the episode ends with her saying that he's now dating a 16-year-old cheerleader. So, is she weird for giving this young guy a chance, or is he weird for dating a high schooler? I don't know. You figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that.
A second later, Ice asked what they would have done to her if she didn't agree to join the team after they revealed their identities. To which the Atom says,
"What would you have done if I'd said no? I mean, I know who you all are."
Don't ask.
Okay, yeah, that's concerning. The whole thing feels out of whack. The cutaways show Ice and Atom joking about their use of powers, describing a prank that they pulled using her abilities. But then we cut back to the plot at hand, and she's unable to utilize her abilities at will. So where do these headshots take place in?
I don't know!
But I think the weirdest part of this pilot is hearing the team refer to themselves as the Justice League. Missing the vast majority of the team's original members, the core four, just feels wrong. It almost feels like they're the Justice League's B team, the minor league of the Super Friends. I don't know, the whole thing is just bizarre and doesn't work on any level. Almost always, I end these videos urging my viewers to go out and look at the projects for themselves. But this is the one time I'm gonna advise you not to do that. This is a waste of your time and patience. There is nothing noteworthy or interesting here. This isn't a case of missed opportunity or a diamond in the rough that never got to shine or any unearthed potential. It's not even something that's so bad it's good. This is bad. Just bad. Completely without merit. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is the worst Justice League there's ever been, and if we're lucky, the worst Justice League there will ever be. So if you like this video as much as I didn't like this movie, and want to see me look at the Justice League movies, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
Man, we ain't no Justice League.
Now, before I go, I don't usually do this. I've had a Patreon for a while now, but I've really struggled with what to do with it. Luckily, the time is upon us where I can actually offer you guys exclusive and extended content that I can't make here on the channel. With new restrictions on what kind of content can be monetized or hell, even shown here on the platform, now's as good a time as ever to be placing my completely unaltered, uncensored, extended videos on my Patreon. I don't want to put my videos behind a paywall, but that's kind of the best place to put them for the time being. So if there was ever a time to give a stranger money on the internet, well, I would like to think that now is that time. Just so everyone knows, all the money I make off my Patreon goes directly back into the channel. Everyone who donates to the Patreon will not be seen as a fan, but rather a producer of said content. And you will be credited as such in the closing credits here on the channel. So if you have the time and $1 to spare, help a guy out. If you can't, I appreciate your time and attention nonetheless.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.